Let's begin by offering our respects to the founder Acharya of ISKCON, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha Kalpa Taruvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, so here we have with us today in our weekly Bhagavad Gita classes, Lavina, Bhumika, Mantinita. Then we have Sri Hari Radha, Aja, Disha Jadwani, Kalpana Heblekar, Karuna Jadwani, Khushi, Lal and Mehak Milwani. Then we have Manju, Mehak Bakshani. Then we have N.C. Venkatchari, Pavani, Rajiv Kumar. My parents are there. Then we have Ranjit Das. We have Ridhima. We have Ritu Lalwani, Sandra, Varsha Mayani, and Venkatesh Prabhu. And we have Hema as well. Okay. So what did we see in the previous class?
I'm also there.
Yeah, I mentioned you in the beginning, Auntie.
Thank you.
Yes. I saw you in the beginning only. You were the first one to join the Zoom, actually.
Always.
Yes. Okay, so in the previous class, we finished chapter 4, and we saw how Krishna says that there is nothing more sublime than transcendental knowledge. This knowledge is unparalleled, is what we discussed. We were discussing how material knowledge is only helping us to make our life better within the prison house. But spiritual knowledge helps us to come out of the prison house, right? So this knowledge is not given to us in schools and colleges, unfortunately. And then Krishna spoke about who is qualified to receive this knowledge in 40 and who is not qualified to receive this knowledge in verse number 41. I'm sorry, in 39 he explained who was eligible to receive, and in 40 he explained who was not eligible to receive this knowledge. And in the last two verses, Krishna says something that confuses Arjuna again. And we saw how in the beginning of 5th chapter, essentially Arjuna is asking the same question that he asked in the beginning of the 3rd chapter. So what is it exactly that Krishna said in 41 and 42 that has confused Arjuna? Let's go to the verse. See, in 41, Krishna uses the word yoga sanyasta karmanam. So Arjuna is confused by the use of these words, sanyasta karmanam. Because karma means to do the work and sanyasta means to renounce. So because Krishna is using these two words together, sanyasta karmanam, Arjuna is thinking, what do you want me to do? You want me to renounce, take sannyas, or you want me to do my work, my duty, my karma, so karmanam. So the use of these two words by Krishna is what has confused Arjuna. But actually what Krishna said was yoga sanyasta karmanam, which means, see, the word yoga means to unite or to put the Lord in the center of all your activities. Now, to do that which pleases the Lord. So yoga sanyasta karmana means you do your duty, but in Krishna consciousness. So Krishna, when you do your duty in Krishna consciousness, in the consciousness of what the Lord wants you to do, then that is equal to renunciation. So that there we are renouncing the fruits of the activity because we are only doing it to please the Lord. We are not doing it because we want anything in return, right? So we renounce the fruits of our activity. But Krishna is not telling Arjuna to renounce activity itself. So this has confused Arjuna. And again, in the next verse, if you see the last verse of chapter 4, Krishna is he's saying that you need to cut out ignorance by the weapon of knowledge. So Krishna is using this word, he's saying that you slash ignorance by the weapon of knowledge. So Arjuna is thinking, so that means I don't have to literally use the weapons on the battlefield. Is that what Krishna trying to say? Is that what Krishna wants me to do? Not actually literally use weapons, but use the weapon of knowledge to remove the ignorance in the heart. So because of these two last verses, we see Arjuna is confused. And in the beginning of chapter 5, he asked the same question. He says, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then you recommend work with devotion. So kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial. So this is essentially the same question that Arjuna asked in 3.1. And then what did Krishna say? Krishna said that both are good for liberation. So we explained how one is to find the root of the tree and the other is to water the tree. One is to if you want to make an investment, you first research the market, right? You first analyze the market. So Sankhya Yoga, or the analytical study of matter and spirit, helps you to make this analysis, make the analysis of the market. And then the businessman knows which is the best investment to make. And then the next obvious thing that follows is that the person makes that investment after studying. So once you do the analytical study of matter and spirit, Sankhya Yoga, then automatically it will lead to bhakti. Because after this analysis of matter and spirit, what is material, what is spiritual, then automatically one realizes one's position is to serve the Lord, and therefore one engages in devotional service. So Krishna is saying that essentially both are the same, but then still Krishna is recommending work in devotion is better than renunciation of work. Although both are good for liberation, Krishna is still recommending bhakti over renunciation. Why is we have already discussed, because when one takes premature renunciation, there is always a risk of fall down. But devotional service, one can engage in anywhere, any place, anytime, in any condition. There are no conditions for that. Even a small child can engage in devotional service. So therefore, devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Krishna says. Do we have any questions from the previous class?
Can I read today, Mataji?
Yes, Sri Hari Rara Mataji.
Chapter 7.
No, chapter 5, verse 7.
Chapter 5, 7th slok.
Yes. So today we will be seeing section 2 of this chapter, where Krishna is now explaining how to perform Nishkama Karma Yoga. Nishkama Karma Yoga is Bhakti Yoga. Because when we do Karma Yoga without any desire, without any karma, Nishkama Karma Yoga, right? Because Krishna is saying that devotional service is better than renunciation, now he's going to explain how to perform Nishkama Karma Yoga in this section. Let's play the shloka.
योगयुक्तो विशुद्धात्मा विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः सर्वभूतात्मभूतात्मा कुर्वन्नपि न लिप्यते.
One who works in devotion, who is pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled.
So Krishna is saying one who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. One may have this desire. Actually, mostly people have this desire that everyone should like me. One does not like to have enemies, or one does not like to have people who hate him, right? So how can we make ourselves dear to everyone? Krishna is giving that formula here. If we want that everybody should like us, then what we have to do? So Krishna is saying, if you work in devotion, if you're a pure soul, if you can control your mind and senses, then such a person is dear to everyone. And not only that, everyone is also dear to him. And Krishna is saying, when you work in such a way, then you don't get entangled. See, there are 3 terms Krishna uses in this verse: Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriya. Vishuddhatma means a purified soul. Vijitatma, one who has controlled his senses. And Jitendriya is one who has conquered his senses. So if we are purified, then automatically we can control our senses, we can control our mind. And if we can control our mind, then we can also conquer our senses. So Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriya, these are the 3 terms, important terms that Krishna uses over here. So a person who possesses these 3 qualities, Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, and Jitendriya, such a person is very dear to everyone, and everyone is very dear to him, Krishna says. Now the question is, does Arjuna fall into this description? Yes or no?
Yes.
So if Arjuna falls into this description, then how is it possible that he's on this battlefield and he's going to kill the people on the opposite side? So how come he is very dear to everyone and everyone is dear to him?
So I guess then the answer is no.
Okay. Anybody else wants to try?
Because the soul continues to live.
Okay. So therefore,
he's not entangled and he's only following the instructions of his guru.
he's only following the instructions of his guru. So he becomes dear to everyone and everyone is dear to him.
And he's a pure soul also.
So see, Srila Prabhupada, that's a very nice answer, Varsha. See, Srila Prabhupada answers, actually he answers this question, the purport. Srila Prabhupada says, Arjuna was only superficially offensive because all the assembled persons on the battlefield would continue to live individually as the soul cannot be slain. So it's not that Arjuna is killing them because only he's going to kill the bodies, but the soul continues to live. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna, which is exactly what Varsha said, in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. So Arjuna was only superficially offensive. He was not actually offensive. It was not that he had this grudge and this animosity towards the Kauravas. He was even ready to go to the forest. No, he was ready to live by begging, but because he fought the war only to carry out the instructions of Krishna, therefore he was only superficially offensive, and therefore yes, he does fit into this description that everyone is very dear to him, and he is also very dear to everyone. Let's hear 8 and 9.
नैव किञ्चित् करोमीति युक्तो मन्येत तत्त्ववित् पश्यन् शृण्वन् स्पृशन् जिघ्रन् अश्नन् गच्छन् स्वपन् श्वसन् प्रलपन् विसृजन् गृह्णन् उन्मिषन् निमिषन्नपि इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेषु वर्तन्त इति धारयन्.
A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in
Seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about.
yes, sleeping and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing, he always knows.
His eye.
He always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects, and that he is aloof from them. Hare Krishna.
So is there a problem with your connection, Sri Hari Radha Mataji?
No, the problem is with the it's very the word.
The word? We are losing you. We lose you in between.
The words are very small for my eyes, and I have to move them around, so then it goes away.
Okay.
I'm going to open my book and maybe I can read it from my book.
Okay, yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so here Krishna is saying that a person in divine consciousness, although engaged in all sorts of activities, actually he's doing nothing at all. So why is it that he's doing all these activities of seeing, hearing, etc., but actually he's doing nothing at all? Is because he's aware that he is not the body, he is spirit soul. So he makes that distinction that the material activities are being carried out because the material senses are engaged with the objects of the senses. See here, he always knows that the material senses are engaged with the objects of the senses. So what are these material senses? And what are the objects of the senses? 5 senses are here. Objects of the senses are here. So all the material activities are carried out because the eyes come in touch with the form, or the ears come in touch with the sound. The nose comes in touch with the smell, and so on and so forth. So these are all the material activities that are carried out by the body. But a Krishna conscious person, he knows that he is not the body, he is spirit, soul. So therefore, he is aloof from all of them. He does not get entangled, Krishna is saying. A Krishna conscious person is fully aware that the soul is inactive materially. Of course, the soul is very active, but materially it is inactive. It does not get entangled in these material activities. The material activities are carried out by the body. So material activities are interactions of the senses with the sense objects. Let's go to 10.
ब्रह्मण्याधाय कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा करोति यः लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रमिवाम्भसा.
One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme God, is not affected by sinful actions as the lotus leaf is untouched by water.
See, Krishna is using an analogy of the lotus leaf. So he's saying just as how a lotus leaf is not touched by water, in the same way, one who does his duty without attachment, that is, if one does his work without any desire for his own sense gratification, which means he is engaged in Nishkama Karma Yoga, giving the results to the Lord. So he doesn't want the results for himself, he gives up the results. Such a person is not affected by sinful action. So if Arjuna is going to fight the war, he is not going to be engaging in Guru Aparad because he is killing his Guru. He is not going to be engaged in Vaishnava Aparad because he's going to kill great Vaishnavas like Bhishma Dev, right? He is not going to be taking any sin. He's not going to be taking any Aparad because he has given the results to Krishna. If Arjuna was doing this war because he wants to be the king or because he has animosity towards Duryodhana and he wants to just kill him out of revenge, then yes, he would have been entangled in the sinful reactions. So the analogy that Krishna is giving here is the lotus leaf is untouched by water. See this, the lotus leaves have a wax covering. So this wax covering enables that although the lotus leaf is in the water, it cannot become wet. So trying to understand this analogy, what is the water compared to here?
The material world.
The material world, yes, very nice. And the lotus leaf is?
The soul.
To us, yes, the living entities. And the soul, yes. And the wax covering is what?
Wax covering.
That is compared to what?
Our consciousness.
What kind of consciousness?
Spiritual consciousness.
Yes. Because if we are in Krishna consciousness, then we will not get affected by the sinful reactions, isn't it? So because of this wax covering, this leaf does not get wet, even though it is in the water. So even though we are in the material world, we are performing material activities, material duties, still we will not get affected by the sin because it's the consciousness that counts. What is your intention? That's what counts. So lotus leaf is the devotee or the living entity. The pond is the material world. Water is the effects of sin and karma. Actually, the pond is the material world and the water is the effects of, so we don't get wet. We don't, the lotus leaf doesn't get wet. We don't get affected by the sin. Water gliding off is what? Compared to?
The reaction?
Yes, the reaction gliding off. Very nice. Wax covering is Nishkama Karma Yoga or Krishna consciousness, as we already discussed.
But
so
even
what
in
we
the
need to give up? Sorry, what's that?
you please show the the water also shows effects of sin or reactions. Then water gliding off means even that is reaction and water is reaction, is it?
No. Water gliding off is a reaction gliding off.
Okay.
The water is on the leaf, but it glides off. So the reactions are there, but the reaction glides off.
Glides off, okay.
You don't take the reaction. Okay.
Thank you.
So what we need to give up is not material life, but the materialistic conception of life. So rise from touch me not to touched me not. So we know that there is this, we have learned in our schools, that there is this particular plant which has leaves. The minute you touch the leaf, they will close. So they're very, very sensitive. So we should not be sensitive in this material. Not that somebody tells us something, somebody insults us, somebody abuses us, and we feel very bad, we feel very affected. Then we have animosity towards a person, we feel a grudge and we carry the grudge in our hearts. No. Better to be like the lotus leaf, touched me not. Don't get affected by what somebody else says. What somebody else does, what somebody else says is between that person, his guru and Krishna, right? So we should not get affected by all these things. We just continue to try and please our spiritual master, we try and please Krishna. That's all. Because that's what matters. If Krishna is pleased with you, then who cares about anybody else? And if Krishna is upset with you, then what is the use if even the whole world adores you, the whole world loves you? But if Krishna is not pleased with you, then what is the use of all that adoration? So rise from touch me not to touched me not. Now one may ask this question: if someone is detached from work due to his knowledge that he is spirit, soul, and not this body, then what is the purpose of his work? Then why to do the work only? Because Krishna is saying, be detached from the work. You just have that consciousness that you are spirit, soul, you are not this body. So then why to do the work? What is the purpose of doing the work? That Krishna answers in the upcoming verse. Let's see.
कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति सङ्गं त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये.
The yogi, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses only for the purpose of purification.
So what is our need to do the work is for the purpose of purification, because when we do our prescribed duties, then it purifies us. We discussed how there are so many samskaras, isn't it? Starting from the Garbhadhana samskara, when the child is not, the child is not yet, the woman has not conceived yet, right? The Garbhadhana samskara is done before conception. And then we have so many other samskaras, the Namkaran samskara, then we have Upanayanam. And then finally, of course, there are many samskaras throughout one's lifetime. And the last is the Antim samskara, or the last rites and rituals. So every time we do these samskaras, every time we do our duties, every time we do our materialistic duties, we are getting purified. How we are getting purified? One, it's because the Lord recommends it. And two, every time we do the samskara, we call the Brahman to the house. We call saintly people to our house. So we are getting their association. And, the duty of the Brahman is, yes, when he comes home to do the samskara, he will do the samskara and everything. But with that also, he gives us some spiritual knowledge, some lesson, some teaching he will do. Because one of the Brahmana's duties is to educate. He has to educate himself as well, and he also has to give education. So that is also a duty of the Brahman. So every time we do the samskaras, these purificatory processes, we call the Brahmanas, they do the purificatory process, they give us their association, and they also give us some teaching, and they go. So we do all this for the purpose of purification. See, stop using the senses or use the senses for Krishna's service. Which is better? Who is more advanced? This person here, he is observing silence, Maun Vrat, for several weeks, several months, several years also. And here you see Srila Prabhupada is not observing Maun Vrat, he is preaching. He is using his senses in the service of Krishna. So who do you think is a more advanced devotee?
Krishna, they use the sense for Krishna service.
Yes, exactly. Use the senses in the service of Krishna is always a more advanced situation than not using the senses. Stop using the senses. We discussed previously also how the soul by nature is active. So we cannot do zero activity. That's not possible. So yes, do the activity, but do the activities in the service of Krishna. That is intelligence. That is intelligence. Say once I was listening to a lecture by His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and he was saying that he was in the Himalayan region and he saw by the mountains, there were two people who were observing Maun Vrat. And he was explaining how they had a board in front of them, and it said this person has not spoken for the past, I don't remember how many years, but it was like several years, like some 10, 15, 20 or something like that. So there was a board, one yogi by that side, and he said this person has not spoken for so many years. And the opposite side, there was another person who had a board that said this person has not spoken for such a period of years. But what they were doing, between them, they were communicating by writing something on the board. So they are writing on the board and they are communicating with each other. So what is the use of that Maun Vrat? They are not speaking, but they are communicating by some other means, isn't it? So the senses are still engaged in some activity. Only thing you are not speaking. So better use the senses and use the senses to speak about the Lord, speak about the devotees of the Lord, glorify the devotees of the Lord. That is a more advanced position.
युक्तः कर्मफलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्ठिकीम् अयुक्तः कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते.
The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the results of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled.
So what does a person attain? What is it that a person gets by engaging in Nishkama Karma Yoga? Krishna says he attains unadulterated peace. Shantim. See, Shantim. So why does one attain unadulterated peace? How can one be peaceful by doing Nishkama Karma Yoga? Is because he's giving the results of the activities to Krishna. So there is no anxiety. There is no anxiety. Will I get the result in my favor or no? For example, when one student does an exam, then there is anxiety till the results have come out. If one makes an investment, then there is anxiety to see whether the investment is going to give good returns or no. So like that, there is so much anxiety in the material world. Isn't it? That's why we want to have everything insured. We want to insure health. We want to insure property. We want to insure against fire, theft, robberies, against fraud. So many insurance policies people have because there is no peace. There is so much of anxiety. But when we give the results to Krishna, automatically we will be peaceful. Then Krishna says, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. See, Krishna consciousness means attachment to Krishna. Bodily consciousness means attachment to results. If we identify with the body that we have, most people don't even identify with the body they have. They identify themselves with the objects that they possess also. Like, let's say, somebody is driving and somebody hits your car from behind. They will not say you hit my car, they'll say you hit me. So the person is identifying with that car also, not only with bodily identification, but with the objects that we possess also people are identifying with. So when one is in bodily consciousness, one is attached to the results, and that causes anxiety. Secret of Krishna consciousness, realization that there is no existence besides Krishna, is a platform of peace and fearlessness. So this is how we can be peaceful. See, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says this to Sri Rupa Goswami. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataiva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakala Ashanta. So Krishna Bhakta, because a devotee of Krishna is Nishkama, he has no desire for his own sense gratification. Therefore, he is Shanta. Therefore, he is peaceful. But those who are Bhuktis, Muktis, Siddhis, they are Ashanta, they are not peaceful. Who are the Bhuktis? The fruitive workers, those who want to enjoy. Muktis are those who desire liberation, the jnanis. Because a devotee does not even desire liberation. He does not want liberation. And then the yogis or the siddhis, when they engage in siddhas because they want mystic powers. We discuss some mystic powers. Now, some of them may be able to walk on water. Some of them may be able to transport themselves from one place to another place. So these are all siddhis that they can attain. But they want that in order to get those powers so that they can attract people. It can also lead them to be distracted from the spiritual path and they can fall down. So such people are Ashanta, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Only a Krishna Bhakta who's Nishkama, only he can be peaceful. Only he can be Shanta. Now let's go to section 3, platform of knowledge, knowing the 3 doers. Who are the doers of the activities? We will see this as we proceed.
Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan.
When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentality, renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done.
When the embodied being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions. So we have to renounce the mentality, okay? Then what happens? Krishna says he resides happily in the city of 9 gates. Nava Dware Pure Dehi. Nava Dwaras Pure Dehi. This Deha, this body, is a city of 9 gates. Now, what are these 9 gates? The openings in the body. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth, 1 genital, and 1 anus. These are the 9 gates, 9 openings of the body. Therefore, the body is called as a city of 9 gates. At the time of death, the soul can leave from any one of these openings. From where the soul leaves also determines what is the next destination of the soul. If the soul leaves from one of the lower openings, that means lower destination. If the soul leaves from the upper openings, that means higher destination. See, some people, when they pass away, they may pass urine at the time of death. Some of them may pass stool at the time of death. Some of them go with the mouth open. Some of them, you'll see that there will be some wax coming out of the ears. At the time of death, there'll be some wax oozing out of the ears. Or there may be some mucus coming from the nose, or from the eyes there may be tears. So that actually, if you observe closely, you will know from where the soul has left the body, and then you know what is the next probable destination of that person. Anyway, coming back to what we were discussing. See, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, the activities of the body or the figurative city of body are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. So we are all, see, we are in this material world, and we are subject to a particular mode of nature, right? There are 3 modes: Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. The mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. So the living entity is acting under the influence of the 3 modes of material nature. Now, what is beyond the 3 modes of material nature? Is there a mode which is beyond the 3 modes?
Shuddha Sattvic.
Shuddha Sattva stage. Yes. What is that? The mode of?
The liberated stage. The
Transcendental state.
Krishna consciousness.
Yes, the mode of transcendental goodness, right? Mode of transcendental goodness. So when one is in the material world and is identifying with the material body, then because he has forgotten his superior nature, owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature. Actually, we belong to Krishna's superior energy. We belong to the Lord's superior energy. Why? Because we are parts and parcels of the Lord, and we are the same in quality. He is Satchitananda. We are also Satchitananda. The soul also is Satchitananda. But we have forgotten our superior nature. Therefore, we are identifying with this material body. The material body does not belong to Krishna's superior energy. And therefore, we are suffering. Just as how the son of a rich man forgets that his father is the richest person on the planet, and he has lost his relationship with his father, and he's running about here and there, living in poverty, because he has forgotten that who his father is. Therefore, he is suffering. So like that only, we forget our superior nature. We identify with the material body, and therefore there is suffering. Now, how to revive our original position? The child, if he remembers his father, immediately he can be united with his father, and his father is going to take care of him, isn't it? So like that, by Krishna consciousness, we can revive our real position and come out of this embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life, in which his deliberations are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. So even though one is living in the body, one is in the material body, still one can be happy, because you make that differentiation. You realize that I am not this body. I am not what I see in the mirror. That's not me. So that is good news for us, actually, that we are not what we see in the mirror. We don't have to be worried when we see gray hair, when we see wrinkles on the skin, because old age, disease is only for the body, it's not for the soul. And we are the soul, not the body. So the soul has a choice. Although subjecting oneself to the conditions of the body, one can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. So even though one may be situated in the material world, one can still be in the transcendental mode of goodness, or in the Shuddha Sattva stage. This choice we have. What is the cause of the soul suffering? Forgetfulness of his superior nature and identifying with the material nature. So what is the solution to this problem? Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness, we can revive the real position and come out of the embodiment. Because of Krishna consciousness, one becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. And in such a controlled life, one's deliberations are changed and he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. So not everybody who walks the planet is a fallen conditioned soul. There are liberated souls, even though they may have a material body, even though they may be staying in the material world, still he can be in the transcendental mode of goodness. So not everybody, you cannot put everybody on the same platform. You cannot say, even the great sages, even Vyasadeva is only an ordinary human being. He is also a human being. So why should we follow all that he has written? No, he may be in the material world, but that doesn't mean that he is subject to the modes of material nature. He can be in the transcendental mode of goodness. So pure devotees can be around us. We don't know what kind of soul, which soul is in which body. We never know. Say Lord Kapila says this to his mother Devahuti. The conditioned living entity is satisfied in his own particular species of life, while deluded by the covering influence of the illusory energy, he feels little inclined to cast off his body when even in hell, for he takes delight in hellish enjoyment. So see, Maya is so strong that we come under her influence. And under the influence of this illusory energy, under the influence of the illusion that Maya is causing us, we do not want to cast off this body. We get so attached to the body that we have that even if one is in hell, we are thinking that, oh, this is wonderful. Just as how one may be in the body of a worm in stool. The worm in stool is thinking, oh, this is great. It feels very warm here. It's very nice. And that worm is thinking that this is wonderful. And life is great. Life is perfect. But we human beings, when we see the worm in stool, we think that, oh, this is such an abominable condition of life, isn't it? But the illusion of Maya is so strong that one thinks that whatever body one is in, one thinks that this is wonderful, this is great, this is fantastic. Our body also, if you see, it was a bad deal to accept this material body. If you see say anything, the quality of something by what is inside, right? You may have a laptop which looks very nice and attractive from the outside, but we want to know what is inside, what kind of a processor it has, what is the hard disk memory, what is the RAM. We want to know the internal configuration, then we know what is actually good in it, isn't it? So how good is this body? We know by seeing what is inside, what kind of things are coming out of the body, mucus and stool and urine and tears and wax, all kinds of obnoxious things are coming out of this body, blood. So it was a very poor deal for us to accept this material body. But the good thing is, in the human species of life, we can use this body in the service of the Lord and then go back home, back to Godhead. So coming to this point, that one thinks that the body is because of the effect of the illusion, because of the effect of Maya, we think that the body is great. There is a story which is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, verse number 5 purport. This explains how Lord Indra was once cursed by his spiritual master Brihaspati to become a hog. He had misbehaved with his spiritual master. So the spiritual master cursed him to become a hog on this planet. Now Lord Indra is living as a hog. Now that curse was for a certain period of time. When that curse period had finished, Lord Brahma came to take him back. He said that now the period has finished. You have finished your punishment in this pig body, and now it's time for you to go back and resume your services as the king of heaven, resume your services as Lord Indra. But that time Indra in the body of the pig says, no, I don't want to go anywhere. I have my wife pig. and I have my children pigs, and I have to take care of them. I'm very happy in this condition of life. I don't want to go. So imagine even Indra, under the spell of Maya, is thinking that this is wonderful. This life is so wonderful. This life in the pig's body is so nice. I don't want to go anywhere. So he imagine, I mean, from being the king of heaven, he is now, what do pigs eat? They eat stool. They are in this dirty condition of life, and Lord Indra in that pig's body is thinking that this is great. So this is Maya, this is illusion. Everyone is satisfied with the kind of body he has, however abominable it may be. But intelligence is to raise one's consciousness, remain in Krishna consciousness, and identify that I am not this body, I am spirit soul. We should not identify with the body we have. If I think that I am man, I am woman, I am rich, I am poor, I am Indian, I am American, then these are all bodily concepts of life. So we have to sit in the city of 9 gates. Yes, we are in this body. The soul is sitting in the city of 9 gates, but we don't have to be stuck in it. We don't have to be stuck in it. We have to try to come out of these material bodies. Happiness is to go home. So let's go back home, back to Godhead. That is real happiness.
न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते.
The embodied spirit master of the city of his body does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature.
So Krishna is saying that the spirit or the individual spirit soul, the living entity, is not the doer. See, Krishna uses the word na thrice. So he's saying the embodied spirit, the master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of his action. So the living entity is not the proprietor. He is not the supreme controller. He is not the supreme proprietor. Krishna is saying all this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So it's the modes of material nature that is carrying out these activities that the living entity is engaging in. So if the living entity is not the doer and everything is enacted by the modes of material nature, then why should I take the karmic reaction of any sinful activity that I do? I can say that the mode of passion induced me to commit this crime. The living entity can say like that. So let's try to understand this a little bit more. See, the story of the cap seller and the monkeys, we have probably learned it in school. The cap seller is selling caps. He has many caps in his basket, and then he's tired. He lies down under the shade of a tree. And then when he wakes up, he says that the basket is empty and all the caps are worn by the different monkeys on that tree. Now, what will he do if he's in the mode of ignorance? What is he going to do? Ignorance is characterized by laziness and lamentation. So if this cap seller is in the mode of ignorance, what is he going to do?
Nothing.
He will just walk away. No, laziness and
Mhm.
lamentation. He will walk away, give up on the problem, and just lament. Oh, why did this happen to me? Oh God, why did you do this to me? What did I do wrong? I have never hurt anyone. Why did this happen to me? Why me? Main hi kyun? So this is ignorance, laziness, and lamentation. But if he's in the mode of passion, which is characterized by impulsiveness and anger, what would he do?
You would have thrown some stones at them to get the caps back.
Yes, he will hurt the monkeys. He will scream and chastise them, scold them, try to hurt them, right? Because he is angry. But will it solve the problem?
No.
No.
Will ignorance or passion solve the problem for him? No. Now, if he's in the mode of goodness, now goodness is characterized by knowledge. You know what is to be done and what is not to be done. So he is in knowledge and he controls his mind and senses. So what will he do if he's in the mode of goodness?
He will pick up one cap and wear it himself.
Yes. And that will induce the monkeys to?
Throw all the caps.
Yes. So he will throw his own cap down, the monkeys imitate, collect this, then he'll collect his caps and he's on his way. So see, the different modes of material nature act differently. If one is in a mode of ignorance, one acts in a certain way. Passion and goodness, he will act in a certain way. So one may say that the particular mode is inducing me to act in a certain way. One can say that. So then why should I take the responsibility for my action? So the question is, do we choose the modes of nature or the modes choose us? Who chooses whom?
I think we choose the modes of nature by doing certain karma.
By doing certain karma, by doing certain activities, we can choose the mode of nature. Can you give an example? Like
The
what
mode of-
activity will make me behave or act in the mode of goodness, for example?
The mode of goodness is intelligence
Uh-huh.
and self-discipline. Like everything has to be positive, everything has to be happy. Like an activity would be reading Bhagavatam, I would say, is done mode of goodness. It's above the mode of goodness, but it's mode of goodness.
Uh-huh. So if we
And
read the Shastra, then it will put us in the mode of goodness or the mode of transcendental goodness. So yes, very nice, Mataji. So our activities make us choose the mode. But do the modes also choose us? Because this current lifetime, is it our first lifetime?
no, it's not. And the
We are
mode
carrying the impressions of the past so many other lifetimes, isn't it? From the past lifetimes, we have behaved and acted in a certain way. So when the child is born, he is already under the influence of a particular mode of nature based on what he has done in the previous so many billions of lifetimes. Therefore, you will see children in a very young age itself, you will know what kind of a child is this. Some children are very, very violent in their childhood itself. Some of them are very, very stubborn. Some of them are very saintly, very polite, very decent. So, just the why, because already this is coming from the previous lifetime. Of course, upbringing also counts. But even parents, when they have two children, both the children are not of the same nature. Both of them will not be under the same mode, although they're getting the same upbringing, isn't it? Because they are in the same house. So you see, we are carrying the modes from the previous lifetime. So the answer is both are happening simultaneously. We develop many desires and inclinations from our previous life. So therefore, we are predisposed to certain modes of nature. Everyone is born under the influence of a combination of the three modes. However, even though one may have so much inclination to a particular mode, still free will is there. So yes, we are predisposed to a certain mode of nature based on our previous lifetime, but that doesn't mean that we continue in the same mode in this lifetime. We can change it. So association, hearing, watching, reading, eating, or engaging in certain activities. So what we hear, what we watch, what we read, what we eat, what kind of activities we do, with whom we are associating with, all this can give us a promotion from a lower mode to a higher mode, or give us a demotion from a higher mode to a lower mode. So such activities can ignite either goodness, passion, or ignorance, leading to sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic tendency. So all this enters our system. What we hear on TV, what we read, what we eat also determines. If we are eating meat, if we are eating foods that are in the mode of passion and mode of ignorance, then it will lead us to the passion and ignorance mode. But when we eat sattvic food, when we eat prasad, when we eat only food that Krishna likes, then you will see the person also will start behaving in a very sattvic way. You can tell when you speak to a sattvic person, you can immediately tell that this person is sattvic because the habits of that person are sattvic. It makes a difference. What we eat, what we read, what we hear, whom we associate with, it all makes a difference. So with all this, we can go from the lower modes to the higher modes. So thus one can change one's inclination by training. As one progresses in Krishna consciousness, one's inclinations change and one is less attracted to the modes, especially the two lower modes. See, we had seen this verse in chapter 2, where Krishna gives this progression. I'm sorry, in chapter 3, Krishna gives this progression. Krishna said that the working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses, and then intelligence is still higher than the mind. And then the soul is even higher than the intelligence. And of course, higher than the soul is the super soul. So the modes simply try to attract the conditioned soul to act in a certain way, but the soul is still in a superior position. See, the soul is in a superior position. The soul is higher than intelligence, mind, senses, and dull matter. So if the soul has given the power of autonomy to the mind, so if the soul is going to just allow the mind to dictate whatever the soul has to do, so if the soul gives the power of autonomy to the mind, then you are helplessly just getting attracted by the dictates of the mind. And the mind is always going to tell us that which one should not do, because mind will always tempt you to doing that which is not correct. Unless the mind is controlled. If the mind is not controlled, as in the case of non-devotees, then one always thinks that, okay, something came to my mind and I just do it. I just want to do whatever comes to my mind. Man marzi, we say. I'm free to do whatever my mind tells me to do. No, that will only lead to destruction. Because if the horse is uncontrolled and you're on top of an uncontrolled horse, then the horse will only lead you to destruction. But if the horse is controlled, you know how to control the horse, and then the horse can become your best friend. Like that, the uncontrolled mind will only take you to the lower modes. So imagine a river with 3 different currents going in 3 ways. A person can choose which current to get into, but once a person chooses the current, then the waves will take the person in that direction. So there is some amount of choice which current to place oneself in. So how we make that choice is by all these factors we saw, the association, the food we eat, what we see, what we hear, etc., etc. So external stimulation leads to internal emotions, and those internal emotions then lead to certain actions. So it works both ways. Yes, we acquire certain modes based on our past life, but then we can change that by choosing what we want to do in this lifetime. As long as one is in the city of the body, one appears to be the master of it, but actually he is neither its proprietor nor controller of its actions and reactions. He is simply in the midst of the material ocean, struggling for existence. The waves of the ocean are tossing him, and he has no control over them. His best solution is to get out of the water by transcendental Krishna consciousness. That alone will save him from all turmoil. So one is in the material ocean and one is being tossed over. One, however expert swimmer one may be, but if one is in the middle of an ocean, you cannot escape. So therefore, what is the solution is to seek out help. So when you seek out help, there is somebody there who's going to throw the floater. You grab the floater and therefore you can be on the shore. So that person whose help we have to seek out is the bona fide spiritual master. Now one may ask, okay, the soul is not the doer. He's being helplessly tossed in the ocean of material existence. The modes are making him behave in a certain way. Then whose reactions is he getting? And whom are the scriptures meant for? If the living entity is not the doer, then why are all these shastras given to us? Whom are they meant for? One can ask this question. So when we say that the soul is not the karta, it means that the soul is not the swatantra karta. The soul is, when we say that the soul is not the doer, it means that he is not the only doer. He is one of the 3 doers. He is not the only doer. So let's take this example. If a tree is cut, the axe is the instrumental cause and woodcutter is the initiating cause. So the cause of the tree being cut is the axe, right? But who has initiated that the axe should fall on the tree is the woodcutter. In the same way, for all the actions in the world, Prakriti or material nature is the instrumental cause, but Jiva or us, we are the initiating cause. The arrangement is made by nature, by material nature, because we desire it in the first place. So we are the initiating cause. Prakriti is the instrumental cause. We have given this example in the past. No? If somebody wants to smoke a cigarette, so the desire is of the person who wants to smoke the cigarette. Now, because there is a demand for it in the market, there are people who want to smoke the cigarette. The government of the country has made available cigarettes to be sold in the different supermarkets, isn't it? So all these different supermarkets or different shops that are selling these cigarettes, they are the prakriti. They are the instrumental cause why these cigarettes are being sold. But the one who's buying it, purchasing it, he is the initiating cause. Because he desires to smoke only, these cigarettes are available in the market for one to purchase. So therefore, we have to take the responsibility for our actions. Therefore, the Shastras are meant for us, for the Jivas. 15.
नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापम् न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः.
Nor does the Supreme Spirit assumes anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of ignorance which covers their real knowledge.
So Krishna is saying that the Supreme Lord does not assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. He does not take the responsibility of anyone's sinful or pious activities. Why? See, in the previous example of the sale of the cigarettes. Now the shops are able to sell cigarettes because the government has sanctioned the sale. It is legal. It is something that's legal. So therefore, they are able to sell it. So like that, the Supreme Lord sanctions, material nature facilitates, and the living entity desires. Or rather, it's reverse. The living entity desires, therefore material nature facilitates, and therefore the Lord sanctions. So the Lord is saying that he will not assume the sinful or pious activities. So one may say, why does not he take the responsibility? Because he has only sanctioned it. If the Lord doesn't sanction it, the shops are not going to sell it, and therefore the living entity does not have the facility to go and purchase the cigarette. So one may say, why is it that the Lord is not assuming any responsibility? Because Srila Prabhupada explains the purport that the soul is Anu Atma and the super soul is Vibhu Atma. The individual soul is atomic and the super soul is omniscient, which means that the super soul knows the desires of all the living entities. He knows everything. There is nothing that the super soul, the Paramatma, does not know. He knows exactly what we want. He knows exactly what we desire. And because the Lord does not interfere with our free will, irrespective of whether we are in the material world or in the spiritual world, he never interferes with our free will. So because we have the free will and we desire a certain thing, therefore the Lord is sanctioning. Just as how the child may desire something and the parents may purchase it for the child because the child wants it. Now the parents can guide the child. No, this is not right. This is not, this is wrong. But if the child continues to demand, then at some point the parent will say, all right, have it, and then see what the experience is. So this is what happens with us. And why is it that the Lord never takes away our free will? Is because our relationship with the Supreme Lord is based on love. So we should desire the Lord. We should love the Lord, and therefore we should be willing to go back to him. It's not something that the Lord wants us to engage in something by force. Because where there is love, there cannot be force. Well, if somebody puts a gun on your head and says, say that you love me, you may say that you love him. But do you really love him? No, you don't really love him, because what you are saying is at gunpoint. So the Lord does not force us to do anything. We always have that free will. So like that, we see this example. If the criminal is jailed, the police is the instrumental cause. The judge is the sanctioning cause, and the criminal is the initiating cause. So like that, the soul is the initiating cause, super soul sanctions it, and material nature is instrumental. So who is responsible for this action? If the criminal is jailed, can the criminal blame the police? Because the police arrested me, therefore I have to go to jail? Or can he blame the judge? Because the judge has said that I have to go to jail for 10 years, therefore is the judge responsible? No, it is a criminal who is responsible, because he was the one who initiated the crime. For example, The father is working out in a gym and he is with his 5-year-old son, let's say. Now the son wants to imitate the father. So he goes and he also tries to lift the weights that he sees his father lifting. But now, of course, the child has less body strength. And when he tries to lift the body weight, he is not able to lift it. And he tries over and over again and he wants to lift it. So what does the father do? He says, okay, he goes behind the child and he will lift the weight from behind. Now the child is thinking that, oh, yes, I have lifted the weight. But actually, it is the father who has lifted the weight. So we have no strength, right? We are completely insignificant when compared to the strength of the Lord. So we cannot even move one strand of hair on our own unless the Lord sanctions it. But we have to take the responsibility for our actions, because if this child did not try to lift the weight, then the father would have not come from behind and lifted the weight for that child. So the responsibility of the action is upon us. But it is possible only because the Lord sanctions it, and of course material nature facilitates it. So who's the doer? There are 3 doers: the living entity, material nature, and the Supreme Lord. The living entity desires, material nature facilitates, and the Lord sanctions. All 3 are the doers, but who takes the responsibility? Only the living entity.
ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानम् येषां नाशितमात्मनः तेषामादित्यवज्ञानम् प्रकाशयति तत्परम्.
When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which e-science is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime.
So like this, when one is aware of this knowledge, then he achieves the state of perfect knowledge. He achieves the state of perfect knowledge. Now, 2 parts of perfect knowledge are: 1, to know that you are different from the body, and 2, to know that one can never become God. One can never become God. One always eternally remains the servant of the Lord. Okay, so one can never become God, and thus the soul is eternally different from the super soul. There is no, this thing that one merges, the Atma and the Paramatma, they merge into each other. That's not there. That does not happen. Even though one may be one with the God, one still retains one's individuality. The living entity always, the soul always maintains its individuality. So you can never become God. You always remain eternally servants of the Lord. So these are the 2 things of this 2 parts of perfect knowledge. Now, how to get this knowledge? Seek out a bona fide spiritual master and learn Krishna consciousness under him. A representative of God never claims that he is God, although he is paid all the respect ordinarily paid to God because he has knowledge of God. So a bona fide guru will never say that he is God, but still we give him all respect as good as God, because a spiritual master is an external representation of the Paramatma. The Paramatma guides us from within, the spiritual master guides us from outside. Internally, the Paramatma guides us, externally, the spiritual master guides. So the spiritual master is a representative of God, but never he will say that he is God, but we respect him as good as God. That is the duty of a disciple. So comparing the soul and the super soul. The soul is eternal, the super soul is also eternal. The soul is blissful, the super soul also is blissful. So Sat and Ananda, both are Satchit Ananda. The soul is cognizant of his body, the super soul is cognizant of all bodies. So the soul, the individual soul knows what is going on in his body. For example, if I have a headache, only I know that I have a headache unless I tell it to somebody else, isn't it? So I know what is going on in my body, the aches and pains in my body, I know. I don't know what is going on in your body. I don't know if somebody has a hand pain or leg pain or somebody has sprained a muscle. I don't know what's going on in somebody else's body. But the super soul knows what is going on in all the bodies because he is present in all the bodies. So he knows exactly what we are even thinking. The soul is Anuatma, atomic, while the super soul is Vibhuatma or omniscient. Then the soul has minute independence to desire. So that's what it is, the minute independence that we always have, but is dependent upon the super soul to fulfill the desire. So the super soul has to sanction it, right? The super soul is completely independent. The Lord does not have to depend on anybody to fulfill his desires. We'll stop here. We'll continue in the next class if Krishna so sanctions. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Okay, so what do we have to discuss? Today is a Rath Yatra in Santiago. If you are in Santiago, please do attend the Rath Yatra, 5 p.m. Come and pull the carts of Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra and be unlimitedly blessed. We pull the ropes of the Lord. And when the time...
Mataji, are you going to go to the Yajna? Can you do it for us? Our names?
What's that?
If you're going to do the rope pulling procedure of the Jagannath Yatra, can you also do it under our name also?
Yes, I can do that. But not if you are in Santiago, because if you are in Santiago, then you have to come and do it yourself.
Yes,
If you're
yes,
not in Santiago, yes. Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay. What else? Another 2 days to go before the submission of exam, chapter number 5. There is one thing that I wanted to say, that there is this question where you have to mention the varnas and which mode they are situated in. So if you follow the example, under the varna, you write the varna. Under the mode, you write the mode. Don't write vice versa. Otherwise, it will be marked wrong. Okay, so please closely follow the example and write accordingly.
What did you say about vice versa?
So, for example, you have brahmanas. They are in the mode of goodness, right? So under where you have the varnas written, that's where you write the 4 varna. That's where you write the Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And where the modes are given, under that you write the modes in which they are pertaining to. Now, where under Brahmana, you don't write
Mode of
mode of passion and don't write Kshatriya. So follow the example closely and do it.
Yeah.
Is it clear? When you see the question, you'll understand.
Okay, Mataji.
Okay, what else?
So, Mataji, Sanam, sorry.
Yes.
The mode you choose it. It's
By
not
our
the
habits.
by our habits. So you are in control of the mode, not the mode is in control of you. It's, even though if you have the karma of the past life and all that thing,
Yes.
you like something in that, or I'm right, or it's the way it is, right?
You're absolutely correct. If we have the right habits and we engage in all those activities that I said, then we are in control of the modes. Then they do not dictate to us. But if we are not engaging in that and we allow the mind to take over, then we are under the control of the modes.
So in anyhow, we are in control of the mode. In any way, we are in. Even though if we come in any type of any situation, but we are in control of the mode. It's the same
Yes,
way.
if you have the correct
example-
habits.
Yeah,
If you
right.
have the correct habits, yes. Yes.
So the way you give the example of the cigarette is that if, as a smoker, one can leave the cigarette even though if it is available. So this is like a mode that you are in control of it. Not
Yes.
that, not you cannot. If you want, you can do it. It's like that. Or anything of something with similar category, something like that, is that you are in control of the mode. Like if you are a drunkard, even though you can go in a bar and that's not a problem, you can still sit down without drinking because you are in control of it. You won't get tempted because you are in control of it.
Correct. Yeah, because if one is an alcoholic, who's going to stop him from going and purchasing the alcohol unless he himself decides not to do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so that's what I had to say. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Okay, then have a nice weekend and nice week in Krishna consciousness. I hope to see you if you're in Santiago at the Rath Yatra. Till then, happy Krishna consciousness. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu vyayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Ki jai.
Jai.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mata Ji ki jai. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Please share pictures from the Rath Yatra, Mataji.
I'll do that.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.